Hello there.
Hello.
Hello there, and we're happy to have you here for the Jackson Geo Show.
Welcome
again.
to our place.
Welcome to my house.
Yes, we're here back for another episode 3.
Yes.
Now, I'm gonna have to deflate the elephant in the room before we start.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're recording here. It's a zoo. There's a huge elephant.
It's
behind
massive,
us, and it smells disgusting. Oh, great. It's doing
there
a mating
goes.
call again.
There it goes.
Look, we need to talk about this elephant in the room. This should technically be episode 4.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's episode 3. Because we did an episode 4. I mean, we did episode 2, and then we did episode 3. So this should be 4.
And we were going to released episode 3 first.
Yes.
We swapped the order.
Because I accidentally deleted technically episode 2.
You hate to see it.
Yeah, it will hopefully. Why am I saying hopefully? It will not happen again.
No, of course not.
I am going to be hopefully editing this out right after we're done recording.
It happens.
So we don't have to worry about that. So that is technically a lost episode that will never be found. Do not worry. The topics will be transferred to not this episode, but to another episode, and there'll be some references in that in episode 2 that will make sense because of So you'll see when it happens. You'll see when it happens. But we are here for this episode. We are doing a double length. Well, not double. It's technically second half double length.
Yes, because we usually do like a general topic for like the first 20-25 minutes, and then we go into our usual media segment.
And for this episode, we are going to be reviewing a piece of media for double the show.
Big whole media show.
And each of us will have half the show to talk about our desired piece of media, whether it be a book, movie, TV show, cassette tape, pornography magazine.
Correct.
But I doubt that either of us have chosen that last option.
I may have chosen the latest Sears catalog, but I guess I'm changing that.
Well, Jackson's going to need some time to rethink, and let's put him on the spot.
I have it. It is not the latest Sears catalog. It is instead what is, I might extend it to a similar piece of media, maybe just to fill in some time. Although I am currently underestimating myself as to how long I can talk about this certain subject. But
is it a Zeller's catalog?
It is not a Zeller's catalog, as it happens. I thought about it for a brief moment, but it is instead one of my favorite movie series ever, and that is the Indiana Jones series.
Ooh.
And now, I grew up with these movies, which is odd to say, considering they're all 80s films. But it was, I dare say, one of the more unorthodox things for a child of 6, 7, 8 years old to be watching and loving, by the way.
Well, I have to break in and say I actually grew up with the films in that same general timeline because, and I'm not sure if this is the same case for you, but I believe it was 2008 or 2007 when the 4th film came out, Crystal Skull.
That's right, 2008. You're right,
and that's how I believe that's how I got into it. So.
See, I was already familiar with all the films.
Really?
Yes. At the point of being 9 years old in 2008, I was familiar with the original trilogy. I always call that the original trilogy. And I saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in the theaters.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, it was the most perfectest film I had ever seen in my life. But we'll get to that later. Ooh. Because I gotta, of course, start with the first film in the series, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I ended up seeing all the films in order. I started with Raiders, and I ended, of course, saw Kingdom of Crystal Skull in the theaters, and Temple of Doom and Last Crusade in between both of those. So let's see, how can I, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and be nice and give the spoiler warning to this now 40-year-old franchise. Raiders of the Lost Ark is 40 years old next year. That's awesome.
Really?
That's right. So 1981, I believe, was when Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. That's what it was called. Every film after that has been Indiana Jones and the blank, insert subtitle here. But the original film was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark, not Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Raiders of the Lost Ark. So the premise of Raiders of the Lost Ark, it starts out with this amazing sequence, a brief, maybe 15, 20 minutes of... not even that, maybe 10, 15 minutes of Alfred Molina is in the first few moments of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
You may know Alfred Molina from Spider-Man 2 when he played Dr. Octopus.
Yes.
So
he's actually also, might I add, this is a very weird fact, but I think for the longest time, because when Spider-Man 2 came out, they made Lego sets, and they technically made a figure of him.
Lego Alfred Molina.
Yes, and they also, when Indiana Jones came out, they also made a Lego figure
did him again.
Of Alfred Molina in 20, I guess maybe 30 years in the past. So for the longest time, he was the only actor in Lego to have two individual figures.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think that's definitely changed now. I think it was like... I think somebody has taken that role again.
Has Harrison Ford had both Indiana Jones and Han Solo?
Technically, yes. But I think there was like I think he was the one that like was the first since
that makes sense.
But I think Harrison Ford does technically count as well, but that is hilarious to me. That such a minor role from such an old movie got that title, and that's beautiful.
It is cool, eh? So Raiders of the Lost Ark starts off with, I believe our heroes are in the Amazon jungle, and they're going to obtain this golden idol. And if you're familiar enough with most notable scenes in movies, this sequence ends with him being chased by a giant boulder.
Yes.
And he then encounters the antagonist of the film, the main antagonist named he goes by Belloc.
Yes.
I can't quite recall what his whole name is, but they call him Belloc. And God, I could quote so much from Raiders. Hang on, let me give you one. He encounters Belloc and he goes, Dr. Jones, again we see there is nothing you can possess which I cannot take away. And then he hands him over the idol. And he's like, too bad the Jovitos. There's this like tribe that he's what's the word I'm thinking of? I guess he's just hired or influenced this tribe to fight for his cause, whatever that cause would be for a man like Belloc.
Yeah.
And Indy hands him the idol, and he's like, too bad the Jovitos. That's the tribe, the Jovitos. He's like, too bad the Jovitos don't know you the way I do, Belloc. And he's like, yes, too bad. You could win them if only you spoke Jovitos. He turns around and he goes, Sakana Motuso, Havata. And then he starts running away, and then he goes, whoosh, whoosh, and then they chase after him. And then he gets to his plane with his pilot. He's getting chased by these tribes people, and he's shouting at Jacques, his pilot, to start the plane. He gets in the plane. Yeah. And I gotta see. I'm quoting the whole thing for time's sake. I'll refrain. I could quote these movies all day long. But anyways, the premise of the film: he gets approached by these two gentlemen to acquire the lost Ark of the Covenant, which is supposed to have this ancient power of evil. Great evil, great power to make any army that holds the Ark invincible. And set in World War II, Adolf Hitler is after this, and so the goons of the franchise, well, most of the franchise, are the Nazis. So he's fighting the Nazis throughout all this, and so that's it. So he's got to go on this quest, find the Ark, and prevent the Fuhrer from acquiring said Ark.
Yes.
And along the way, he encounters Marion Ravenwood, one who I am as quickly as I possibly can finding out who plays. I gotta. Come on. It's on the tip of my tongue. Come on. Blah 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 blah, and Kate Blanchett. There we are.
There.
Okay, that took way too long. So Kate Blanchett plays Ravenwood, Marion Ravenwood, and she comes along with him on this quest. Mm-hmm. And they end up finding the Ark with the help of Sala, one of Indy's friends. But then, of course, they get found out. The Ark gets taken back, and they're tied to this big pole and watching this big ceremony with Belloc, who doesn't want the Fuhrer to have all the power. After all, he wants all the power.
Yes. And
lo and behold, he opens the Ark, and it's empty. But then something happens, and these spirits start coming out of the Ark. And it's like, wow, he's like, it's beautiful. And then they turned out to be very demonic, and they blow up his head.
Yeah, and they all melt.
The infamous face melting scene. Man, I loved that as a kid.
That was the craziest thing. And it was just kind of like, you think of it now, they kind of look like plasticine models.
They do,
kind of under a lighter. But I think that's what makes the scene so great. I love it.
Oh, and of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark also includes one of the most... famous, I suppose, most famous scenes in movie history when he's facing off the swordsman and the swordsman's spinning his sword around and he just pulls out his gun and shoots him.
Yeah, I love that. It's just it kind of summarizes Harrison Ford's character. Yes. Just of like, he just doesn't take anything, he just shoots him.
And it was so nonchalant like that too.
It's such a beautiful scene.
Which brings us to the prequel Temple of Doom, which I didn't know for a very long time was a prequel, but it is indeed a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that title was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And that starts out in China, where he's exchanging some ancient ashes for some cash. That goes awry, and he then brings I suppose you could call it the Indiana Jones movie love interest as almost like a James Bond-esque vibe. That what's her name? Her name is Willie. That's her stage name. Played by Kate Capshaw, who then went on to marry Steven Spielberg, one of the makers of the films. And that premise of that film is they encounter this Indian village that is in ruins, and the village people are still there. And they say an ancient evil has come upon the village when these people from this very prestigious palace came and took these 3 sacred rocks from this. I dare not call it a shrine. I'll just call it a display. And then evil came and wiped out the village, wiped out all the green, all life of the village. They took their children. They took all the children. And so that's the premise of the film. They're going to Pankot Palace, which is what it was called.
Yes.
And they're getting these stones back, and there's a thuggee cult underneath all of it that's using these children to dig this in this mine to find these final Sankara stones. That's what they're called, Sankara stones. And Temple of Doom, throughout the sequence, because they get these children out of there. Yes. They free the slave children. And that sequence of freeing those children has one of, if not my favorite piece of musical score in any film ever. I highly encourage you go out and listen to it. It's the score for Temple of Doom is on Spotify. It's called Slave Children's Crusade, the particular piece. It's absolutely phenomenal. Temple of Doom also includes a very notable bit where this guy's getting lowered into a pit of lava, and he just keeps saying, "Oh, Joshi boy, oh, Joshi boy, oh, Joshi boy." That's a very common phrase around my household. But and
I also believe, and I'm not sure if I'm bringing this up or spoiling the rest of your piece,
but
it also includes a scene where I forget the main villain's name.
Molaram. That's his name.
Where he rips somebody's heart out.
That's the same sequence. Yes. Yeah. I love practical effects, and that was done. There's the Molaram. He puts his hand in this man's torso and pulls out his heart, and it gets on fire. But you best believe, again, they get these slave children out of there. In each indie movie, there's a kind of a second in command kind of guy, who always has a very horrific demise. And in Temple of Doom, this man was he was flattened. He was very much pancaked. But of course, Mola Ram meets his end.
Yes.
And, meanwhile, Short Round is in this film.
Yes.
Oh, man, how could I have forgotten? One of the most entertaining characters in a film ever. He's just a little kid who Indy takes care of, and he comes along on this journey. He's such a great fella. Oh, he was also in Goonies, and his name is K-Hyu Kwan. I really hope I'm saying that right, because he's fantastic. He was in Goonies. He's very fun. And life returns to the village. The children return. They bring one of the stones back, and all ends well. Which brings us to my personal favorite of the original trilogy, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We open with young Indy, played by River Phoenix, which was a phenomenal casting, phenomenal job from River Phoenix. And you learn some of his backstory. He's in like a scouts troop.
Yes.
And he's just exploring a little bit, and he runs into these five or six gentlemen, which they mention later.
This sequence on a train, right?
It does end up on a train.
Yes. Okay. That's how I remember.
So these 5-6 gentlemen are searching for this cross of Coronado, which they find. Mm-hmm. And I suppose you could have said leader of this particular group, funny enough, is wearing Indy's hat. And so, Indy takes this cross. They chase after him on the train, and he gets back home, and he sees his dad, and they come back. They get the cross back anyways, but the main guy of this group is pretty nice about it, and he gives him his hat. So you find out where he got his hat from. And then the sequence goes into him getting the cross back. And then each film has kind of been set up with a kind of side mission, and then we know the main mission of the film, which in Last Crusade, he's met by a man who also was in Star Wars. The character in question is his name is Walter Donovan, and phenomenally played by Julian Glover, who was also in Star Wars. And the main premise of that film is they're chasing after the Holy Grail.
Ooh.
Yeah, like the treasure of all treasures, pretty much. And so he and Denholm Elliott, who plays Marcus Brody in the movies, they go to Italy in search of their project leader. And Indiana Jones was like, "Oh yeah, you got the wrong Jones here, man. Why don't you try my father?" He's like, "We tried. Your father is the man who's gone missing." So while they're looking for the Holy Grail, they're also on a mission to find Henry Jones the First.
Sean Connery,
freaking Connery, who they find, and turns out the love interest, Elsa, who was played by Alison Doody. She's also phenomenal. She turns out to be in the cahoots with the Nazis.
Yes, traitor.
The Nazis are back, and Julian Glover, he's not quite a Nazi, but he's still the antagonist. He's revealed to be the antagonist. He wants the Grail all to himself, and so they go on the grand adventure. Which again, I wish I could sit here and quote all of it, but we don't have the time. But the film, the climax of the film at the very end. Oh, by the way, the second in command guy meets his end after falling off a cliff in a tank, which is fun. The climax of the film, they all meet in the Canyon of the Crescent Moon in this big palace, and Julian Glover's character of Walter Donovan, he friggin' shoots Sean Connery, and we're like, nah. And so now Harrison Ford has to go and find this Grail, and he finds the Grail. He finds a knight, an ancient knight there who's still alive somehow, extremely old, as you can imagine. And he's in this room guarding the Grail, and on like a big table, there's a bunch of Grails there. And when Walter Donovan and Elsa follow Indy into this room, they're like, "Well, which one is it?" And so the knight says, "What does he say?" He says, "You have to choose, but choose wisely, for the true Grail will give you life. The false Grail will take it from you." And so he's like, well, I don't know what it looks like. And Elsa's like, well, let me choose. I'll pick it. I know which one it is. And he's like, okay, cool. And so she picks up what is believed to be the Grail. It's not the right Grail. And interesting about this particular sequence where she picks up the Grail, in the corner, in like the bottom right corner of the scene, you can see her look at Harrison Ford and shake her head no. She's indicating she knows she picked the wrong Grail. And so, as you can imagine, he drinks from the Grail, and he turns very old and shatters into a million tiny pieces as a skeleton. Woo! And to the surprise of nobody, Harrison Ford picks up the right Grail, and he drinks out of it. He's all good. They save Sean Connery, and they ride off into the sunset. My favorite Indiana Jones film. And then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out in 2008, and I saw it in the theaters, and I thought it was okay. But now I'm actually realizing that was actually terrible, and I really don't want to talk about it.
Jeez.
There we go.
You know, I'm going to have to be honest. And I don't know if this is maybe nostalgia blinding me, as this is a big thing that came out when I was a kid. I think Crystal Skull, although not on the same tier as the original 3 Indiana Jones movies, is still a decent movie nonetheless.
I can agree with that. I think I can get on that.
Because as good as I think, apparently, and I'm not sure, apparently there's another film.
Yes, there is a 5th one coming out soon.
Apparently it's supposed, I'm not sure if it's going to be an actual theatrical thing. I read somewhere it's supposed to be Disney Plus, which doesn't really sound that good to me, because I feel like those are movies that you need to experience in a theatrical setting.
Oh, I'd be shocked if they didn't release that theatrically.
But I have to say I'm not sure about this new one, because I do think, I mean, Harrison Ford is a little old, so I'm not sure if he'll be able to pull off all the stunts.
He's certainly more. I don't know if he's gone on record saying that he prefers Indiana Jones over Han Solo, but from what I've heard, that's the case. He loves Indiana Jones, which is understandable. He's the lead guy.
Yes.
You know, but I'm sure he's not forcing himself to do these, and you know, I'm sure I would hope that he loves to do them.
Oh, definitely.
And you know, again, being the lead guy, I imagine you'd want to keep being that lead guy. And I imagine that was the case when he signed on to do a 4th Indiana Jones film, which, looking back, again, I thought it was amazing when I first saw it in theaters. Not quite the case. I have feelings about it. I have mixed feelings about it. I like Shia LaBeouf. I actually do like Shia LaBeouf in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Prior to his He Will Not Divide Us mental breakdown.
That's right. You know what? He's picking it up. He's turning over he's pulling an Adam Sandler, which I'm very happy about.
Excellent.
And what was else? Oh yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull also had maybe the best second in command demise out there. The guy gets eaten alive by ants.
Ooh. Oh yeah, that's in the mud
gross.
pit.
It's gross, but I love it.
Oof.
It's definitely one of the more creative ones.
But if they do make it for this 5th film, do you think Shia LaBeouf will be possibly?
Maybe. I don't know what they could possibly do. It was a cool ending in Crystal Skull. You know, you find out that they are father and son. You know, I thought that was cool. You know, Kate Capshaw and Marion Ravenwood, of course, made the return, and then they got married in that movie, which I thought was nice. I thought that was a very cool way to end it. I would very much like to see what Shia LaBeouf would be doing in a 5th Indiana Jones film.
I would like to see possibly, and I think it would be interesting, a return of the character, but not as a sidekick for the entire film. Because I like the idea
maybe
of
more major role.
Yeah, I like the idea of with each film, there's almost like, even though Marion was in, she was in film 1 basically.
Yes.
And 4th film as well. I like the idea of having characters return, but not having them be on the screen as the main sidekick, but having like someone new each time, you know?
Yeah. And Kingdom of Crystal Skull was full of references too. It was full of references, of course, bringing back Kate Capshaw. Oh, I imagine that was for more than a reference, of course.
Yeah.
She played a very major part in that movie.
Yeah.
I think there was a sequence where at the very beginning, they're in the big warehouse where they store all these treasures that he's found.
Yeah.
And there's like a big get away. They smash some boxes, and one of the boxes has the Ark in it, which I thought was kind of neat. The movie's such a mess, though.
One scene that I remember seeing, and I enjoy this scene in a somewhat ironic sense, is because of how odd it was. And I think I'm 99% sure this is Crystal Skull, but there's the bomb shelter town.
Yeah, that's the one.
And he has to go, and it's like basically a bomb testing, and then he goes into like hides in a fridge.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's such a weird scene that I just. I think, and that has reached right into what I didn't know I had in my brain. I did not know I had that scene on memory, but I just suddenly thinking of this movie because, oh my goodness, I have to give all of them a rewatch. I haven't watched them in the longest time.
I recommend it. You won't be sorry.
I agree with that. I had like 2000 and it must have been 2008. It was definitely not 2009. It was. Did that movie come? Crystal Skull?
2008.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not going insane, but that was the peak of. I remember the first time I watched Indiana Jones. It was the weirdest experience. Don't worry, I got the full. We set it to record on VHS on our in our kitchen TV, which was one of those big boob tubes that had like the VCR at the bottom, TV at the top. Recorded it off TV, but the recording had one of those, when you're on the TV selection where it has the channel and it has like the screen of what's playing on the channel at the top left corner, and at the bottom it shows with the TV. Yeah. That's how the whole recording was. So it was not a pleasant viewing experience, and that was, I believe it was...
wouldn't have been a pleasant viewing experience if it was full screen.
Yeah, it was Temple of Doom.
Never mind.
Yes, it was not Crystal Skull. It was Temple of Doom.
Oh my goodness!
But it was so great watching the movie, and I just loved it. And I remember afterwards we went to garage sales, and I got 4 tapes. I got not just 2 Indiana Jones. I got Temple of Doom, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then I got 2 other classic movies. I got Batman, the Michael Keaton one, and Batman Returns. Choice. So it was almost like I watched after those movies. I was probably too young. To watch all of them. But still, those movies were fantastic, and it was the longest time. And then I finally saw on TV the final one. Not the final one, but I saw Last Crusade. We just talked about this, and I'm already going a blank. I watched Last Crusade off TV, and then we rented Crystal Skull from the library, and that was an interesting experience.
If I had to, which is probably a good way to end this segment, if I had to maybe rank them all and give them a score, 4 would definitely be Crystal Skull. I would probably give that like a 6 out of 10, which I think is being generous.
That's very generous.
3rd would probably be Temple of Doom. I would give that like an 8, though. I freaking love Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom is hilarious, too. Kate Capshaw is amazing. And 2, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'd give that like a 9. And Last Crusade gets a perfect 10 out of 10 in my books.
You are going to hate me for this.
Oh,
but on my list of movies, I'm going to... Crystal Skull gets 4.
Yeah.
I would give... Oh, you're going to hate me for this. I put... Even though the rest of these are 10 out of 10s for me, but I would put it in the order that they were released. I would do...
Fair enough.
Last Crusade, Raiders, or I guess chronological order. Last Crusade, Raiders, and then Temple of Doom.
You like Temple of Doom the most? I respect.
Seeing that as the first one, and there's so many things I just love about that movie, and I have to watch it again. I love the ending.
Yeah.
Where the whole minecart scene.
Yeah,
down in the mine.
It's such a fun film.
And then the scene when they're going over the bridge, that sticks out into my mind as the perfect ending movie with the perfect climax, the perfect ending, the perfect characters. And well, maybe not perfect characters.
Pretty darn close.
In a way, they're perfectly written, and it's just,
Molaram, prepare to meet Kali in hell. And then he cuts the bridge in half. He's telling him, he says to, what does he say to Short Round? He says something in Chinese. He says, Lao Shi, La Susanza, something like that. I hope I didn't butcher that. I'm trying to quote. It's the extent of my. Wait a second. It might have been Japanese. Yikes. Oof. You know what? It was Japanese. Disregard, because I remember him saying something about the Japanese bombing raid. Well, it was Japanese. Check.
Will Jackson be canceled by the time we return to the second part of the broadcast? Find out. We're taking, if you're, I was going to say you're taking a break, but you could not be listening to us live. Could be listening to the podcast version.
Very well could be.
We're cutting off.
We are taking a break.
We're taking a break.
We will be back instantly.
For part 2. Depending, not instantly. Depending.
If you're listening to the podcast, we're going to be back instantly.
We're like instant coffee.
Yes, we are.
You know, the idea is great. We're gonna come right back, but it's just not as good as having a regular brew.
The best part of waking up is us in your cup.
Yes. We'll be back.